partners mean progress. Golly, partners has to be the worst topic I could come up with, because I was like, how am I going to figure this out? And so I started thinking about it, and I looked over the best management practices for the National Water Trail System. And it says water trails are recreational routes and waterways with a network of public access points supported by broad-based community partnerships. Broad-based community partnerships. And I started still trying to rack my brains, and she wanted me to try to throw in some sort of team-building exercise or something that we could kind of talk about. And so I came up with these objects, and if anybody would like to try to take a stab at extrapolating how one of these icons or graphics is like a partnership.
Oh my gosh, take a minute. Everybody's got a different piece of the puzzle. I mean, in this room I can identify many photos that have a different aspect. When it all comes together, then you get the big picture, you get an end result. And it's just that everybody at this point in time has a piece of the puzzle here, a piece of the puzzle here. How do you connect it together to get the big picture and get something solidified? And everything right now is work in progress. For Porterdale, it's work in progress. We're all working for a common goal. It's just get those pieces of the puzzle connected, put together, to come up with, we're there, guys. We're there.
You may like to extrapolate on another.
Well, the guy in the front stops down and I can go in here fast.
Absolutely.
The one in the back has to work harder.
I like the one on the top right, because everyone's had the same goal, but everyone's the perspective and brings their own talents to get us all focused on the same bullet point, the same goal.
Thank you. What's that? You'd like to try to take a
We're all
step?
working as a team.
All working as a team, all working towards the same goals.
On that bottom left, if one person stops, they all stop.
Yeah, cogs in the wheel.
Absolutely.
Okay, a tandem boat, if the bigger person's in the front, you go in circles. First year paddleboard,
It's funny, I had a question back in graduate school. We were working on some team building exercises, and the professor asked, got three questions, or three scenarios on partnerships. Is how you go about working with partners like paddling a canoe, raising a garden, playing sport, basically. Anybody like to take that one?
Being willing to compromise.
Well, is it, you say it's a garden, nurturing it, putting water and the right ingredients and the things in it to make it grow. How about if it's paddling a canoe? Is it a partnership?
We call those the force folks in my business.
Yep. So I guess the point here, what I'm trying to get at and work towards is that, Catherine made the point that obviously there's money in this. People are spending money going out paddling. And then Bob said there's money to support being developed. These amenities to be developed for people to use. And that's great and all, but, like we go back to the last slide. Water trails or routes and waterways, the network of public access points supported by broad-based community partnerships. One entity cannot do it alone. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Everybody's working towards the same goals. And if one person stops, you go in circles or it stops completely. So, partnerships. It's obviously an arrangement between parties. Everybody agrees to cooperate and advance their mutual interests. So, when you're developing a water trail, you need to find out who the partners in your community need to be. Charlotte and I have worked on this for a few years with Etowah River Trail and trying to figure out who are those stakeholders in the community that can help us not only develop the idea, but then develop, creating the thing itself and then being able to maintain and take care of it. And so our partners that we looked at were municipal government agencies. Obviously you've got a town, municipality here. You want to talk to government agencies about who can be involved. Your advocacy groups, your river keepers, your Keep County Beautiful folks. Folks that are going to be involved in advocacy for it. Public and private landowners, folks along the river that may be hesitant about what's going on. Dan's going to talk a little bit about that later. Finding private businesses. Catherine talked about how those that are affected are lodging, your restaurants, your outfitters. Those are the people that you want to have involved in this partnership, and then volunteer organizations, because we all know there's no free lunch. Once you build it, you got to take care of it. And everybody's got the same common goals, and that's what you have to find with your partners. Is we're here for recreation, education, preservation, stewardship, community, and economic development. That's where we start bringing the pieces of the puzzle together. We start making a collaborative effort. So we get together, we build that foundation, and we develop a sustained vision. And then how do you sustain it? Making it work together by support, advocacy, and maintenance. You got to look at keeping that relationship going, people advocating for you both internally and externally, and everybody supporting the same goal. Heading towards your trip. All right, so the Etowah River Canoe Trail, this was an idea that started back in 2003 with some students from UGA, Etowah Initiative, and then I think some grant funding that came from the Forestry Service. And they looked at developing this idea of water trail, greenways, all these conservation areas, and putting this really neat thing together. It would be called the Etowah. And it was given to me in an email from someone and said, would Forsyth County be interested in working on something like this? And being a paddler, I grew up in South Carolina. I'm about 45, my parents are 45 minutes from Walk-On. So love that river. Grew up then after that down in Charleston, went to school in South Carolina, and so when I came here and finished up at Georgia College with my master's, where do I go paddle? Where are places to go in Georgia that I could go paddle? Spent a lot of time on the Broad, did a lot up north, and then started heading to North Carolina and in Tennessee to paddle, and even Alabama. Just didn't really know what there was to do here. And then so when it came across my desk for this idea, I said, yeah, I want to jump on this. And I got with Charlotte, and Charlotte and I started working together on a plan to help build kind of an advisory committee that would then be a task force and then these other things. And we started looking at who our partners were going to be. Because I didn't want to jump into this and try to build a canoe launch and that be it. I wanted something that would be sustainable, something that would make it, something that would drive economic and community development in Forsyth County as well as that region. So we brought in representatives from Cherokee, Dawson, Forsyth County, City of Canton, and Lumpkin. For some reason, Lumpkin just does not seem to be too interested in this idea, but they're the headquarters for the Etowah, and just cannot get them on board. But then we also brought in advocacy groups like the Upper Etowah River Alliance, Coosa River Basin Initiative, which I think Joe had another thing that he couldn't be here. But Joe has just been amazing at what he's been doing on the south end of Lake Altoona, on the river, and then in the Coosa. And we also got Mountain Conservation Trust, because they have this conservation loop they've been working on that kind of ties into the Etowah concept that UGA students planned. Volunteer organization, Mountain Stewards. Don Wells couldn't make it today either, but he has been a wealth of information. And his group, I think he said his average member's age is around 65, 66. But these gentlemen build canoe launches all over North Georgia. They're a volunteer organization you want to have on board to help make some things happen, because sometimes funding can't be found. And when funding can't be found, you can draw on volunteer organizations to make it work. Landowners, there's a private launch, and we're trying to get with the Kelly family to develop some sort of public access at that point, and businesses, Appalachian Outfitters, in the outside world. So I always try to talk about how funny this is, but if you look at where it starts and where it ends, Forsyth County has like the smallest investment in this, in the whole river itself. Yet, I said, no, just because we're the smallest doesn't mean we can't be the biggest part of this. And so what we did was we got together with our stakeholders. We tried to identify who we thought needed to be in this group, brought all those folks together and started sharing ideas and goals. But when I started talking to Cherokee County, years prior, they had been working trying to get state funds to develop canoe launches because they wanted to do this. They were super excited that we were going to go and start to do this again. And as well as the City of Canton. And I just heard last week from Don and Diane Minnick from Upper Etowah River Alliance that they pulled the permits for the Canton launches. So those are going to happen now. So, everything started moving, and everything was great. Forsyth County in 2008 passed $100 million green space and parks fund. $36 million of that went to property acquisition for green space. And we bought 225 acres on the Etowah River, which I'll show you in just a second, that we're now developing into a park. And we just, Charlotte informed me this past week that we were going to be getting RTCA assistance again next year, where we will finally be working on the strategic plan, marketing plan, branding, and then creating the intergovernmental agreements and MOUs with our volunteer organizations, advocacy groups, and defining all those roles and responsibilities. And Joe has already got a website up. Joe's already got a lot of stuff going on the PUSA, so the pieces are now in place. We just got to all come back together, form that partnership bond again, and support each other moving forward. And then we open our new park and the trail. So the trail is kind of there now. We just need to put in some of the amenities and facilities. One of the major things I wanted to do in Forsyth was try to find a way to offer camping. Because we talked about earlier, there's no camping sites along the river trails. Well, guess what? The Etowah will have one. And it's smack dab in the center on the northern part of the river from Lumpkin down to Lake Alatina. This is a 225-acre park that we purchased. Right in the center is the old federal highway. Anybody here is studied history or student of history? The old federal highway, this area in particular, is where the Trail of Tears started in Georgia. And there's a late 1800s farmhouse that's on site that's actually now being preserved by the Historic Society of Forsyth County. They're going to preserve it and grab a whole bunch of federal money and state money to develop a cultural and historical heritage center there. We'll have a canoe launch up at the top. We'll have a canoe launch here at the top. We'll have amenities and facilities here that are camping and the restrooms. There's an RC airfield here in this floodplain. We'll have an archery facility, community garden, a BMX track, as well as Davies facilities, and the trails here about 6 miles in length for mountain biking and hiking. So, with a 2-mile riverfront. So it's a pretty cool park. One that we're going to start moving on January. I think they're going to start moving dirt. We should have the launch and the restroom facilities and the camping open in spring of 2014. And so, one other thing Gwyneth wanted me to talk about was pros and cons of partnerships. One of the things you need to always, wherever it is the one-way benefits. You need to be able to share, not just me or us. Figuring out what differences you have, and then what's needed and intended. And making sure everybody's on the same page about what they want, because sometimes you can go in different directions, and if everybody's not sharing information, things can happen without you knowing, and it just doesn't work out. The ownership issues, who's responsible for what, when, where, how, and why. Lack of trust, sometimes working with the government people on the outside don't always trust what the government's doing, and there's so much ulterior motive. Inequity. Make sure everybody's got a fair shake at everything. Issues of power, reasonably responsible, fear of the unknown, blinders, blind spots, entrenchments, and assumptions. Don't ever assume that someone's going to take care of something. Get it right. And when you have those IGAs and those MOUs, everything's spelled out. Everybody understands what their role and responsibilities are. So, that's it. I finished with 60 seconds. Does anybody have any questions?
Did you say the mountain stewards who were building canoe launches?
Yes, sir. Mountain Stewards, they're a nonprofit.